Preface to A Brief Grammar of the Portuguese Language. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Leni. A Brief Grammar of the Portuguese Language by John Casper Branner. Preface. This little book has been prepared for the use of English-speaking students who wish to get a practical knowledge of the Portuguese language. The plan of Professor Edgren's brief Spanish grammar has been followed, in many respects, almost literally. Many Portuguese grammars have been consulted, but the ones most freely drawn from are the 13th edition of João Ribeiro's Gramática Portuguesa, published at Rio de Janeiro in 1907, and the 26th edition of the Nova Gramática Portuguesa by Bento José de Oliveira, published at Coimbra in 1904. It is not claimed that there is much that is new or original in the work. The author has simply endeavored to follow the best Portuguese grammarians and his own observations and experience with the language in an effort to make it readily accessible to English-speaking students and in as compact a form as possible. It has been kept in mind that such a work, in order to be useful, must keep practical points in view, even at the expense of the erudite and more scholarly features of the language. The book is purely elementary. Those who require a thorough knowledge of the philologic and philosophic features of the tongue should consult the more pretentious works. Near the end of the volume, a few short examples are quoted from several of the best Portuguese authors. These examples are taken partly from Brazilian and partly from Portuguese writers. It may be well to say here that the idea one often hears expressed to the effect that the Portuguese of Brazil is not good Portuguese is altogether erroneous. It is true that one hears purely local terms and expressions in various parts of Brazil, but so he does in Portugal, and, for that matter, in all languages and in every other part of the world. The language used by the educated Brazilians is just as correct in the main as that used by the educated Portuguese. The difference between the Portuguese spoken in Brazil and that spoken in Portugal is similar to the difference between the English of North America and the English of England, one about which the foreigner need not seriously concern himself. Portuguese is a remarkably phonetic language, and one accustomed to the difficulties of the English or even of the French must be impressed with the comparative simplicity of its spelling. Examples of the chief orthographic difficulties are given at paragraph 13, pages 21-22. Those who are interested in this subject should consult the scholarly work of A. R. Gonçalves Viana, entitled Ortografia Nacional, published at Lisbon in 1904. Of late years, there has been some agitation in favor of orthographic reform, and the Brazilian Academy promulgated in 1907 certain rules which, if followed, would still further tend to simplify spelling. These rules, however, do not appear to have been taken seriously as yet. The Brazilian scholar who has given most careful and most practical attention to this matter of Portuguese spelling is Professor M. Said Ali, of Rio de Janeiro. He has published a Vocabulário Ortográfico, in which rules for greater simplicity are laid down, and the words about which there is any question are all given. The spelling given by Professor Said Ali has been followed in the present work. In cases where two spellings have been or are used, cross-references are made in the vocabulary. The chief object of this book is to encourage and facilitate the study of the Portuguese language and literature by English-speaking people. It is not a little remarkable that the language has not been cultivated more by English and American scholars. Footnote: Sir Richard Burton makes this comprehensive remark about the popular Anglo-Saxon idea of the Portuguese. As a rule, we dislike the language because it is nasal, and we have a deep-rooted and most ignorant idea that Portuguese, the most Latin of all the Neo-Latin tongues, is a bastard dialect of Spanish. Burton's Highlands of Brazil, 1:15. End of footnote. It is generally regarded as the most Latin of the Latin tongues, and it certainly is a virile one, and has a classic solemnity that distinguishes it from all other living languages. In addition, the literary, historical, and philological treasures of the Portuguese commended to the thoughtful attention of scholars the world over, while the increasing commercial importance of Portuguese-speaking nations entitle it to respectful consideration and study for commercial, political, and diplomatic reasons. For many corrections and valuable suggestions, the author gratefully acknowledges his indebtedness to the able Brazilian historian, Capistrano de Abreu, and to the distinguished grammarian, Professor Said Ali, who have kindly read the manuscript. For any errors, oversights, or other shortcomings of the work, however, these gentlemen are in no way responsible. J. C. Branner, Stanford University, California. The Portuguese language. The Portuguese language was evolved principally from the popular Latin spoken in the Portuguese part of the Spanish peninsula after the Roman conquest in the 2nd century before Christ. Only a few words of the former Celtic dialects spoken there were preserved in the later Portuguese. The subsequent Gothic invasion also introduced a few words of Germanic origin, while the religious life of the people led to the introduction of certain words of Greek origin. In the 8th century, the Moors invaded the Spanish peninsula, and for several hundred years occupied portions of that region. This long contact of the Moors with the inhabitants of Portugal naturally resulted in the introduction into the Portuguese language of a good many words of Semitic origin. Most of these words have as a prefix the Arabian article al, such as algodão, cotton, alfinete, pin. It was during the long Gothic and Arabian occupancy that the Latin spoken in western Spain appears to have gradually taken on the form of a distinct language that was spoken the whole length of the region now known as Portugal. The oldest known documents in the Portuguese language date from the last quarter of the 12th century, about the time the Portuguese monarchy was founded. It was only in the 13th and 14th centuries, however, that it became a literary language and took on permanent form. A few words were introduced from the French and others from the Provençal, while translations from the Latin introduced many words and idioms from that language, partly, it is supposed, through the pedantry of the translators. The Spanish language, on account of its literary vogue, and on account of the proximity of its people and the similarity of the two tongues, necessarily reacted upon the Portuguese. This vogue was so marked that during the 16th and 17th centuries many Portuguese authors wrote in Spanish. The explorations of the Portuguese navigators into the newly discovered parts of the world led to the importation of some foreign words, and, at the same time, carried colonists and established the language in Asia, Africa, and South America. In the 16th century, the first Portuguese grammars were published by Fernão de Oliveira and João de Barros, and these works materially helped to fix the language. It is said that of the living languages of Latin origin, the Portuguese most closely resembles the Latin. This is due to the fact that Portugal, on account of its geographic position, has not been affected by contact with the rest of the world so much as Italy, France, and Spain. In recent years, however, the increased facilities for international communication, the demands of commerce, and the requirements of various enterprises and technical industries, and the spread of interest in certain sports, have caused the introduction of words from various foreign tongues. In many cases, the foreign words themselves have been adopted, but in others the words have been more or less modified. End of preface. Chapter 1 of A Brief Grammar of the Portuguese Language. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Leni. A Brief Grammar of the Portuguese Language by John Casper Branner. Chapter 1. Sounds and Accents. Alphabet. 1. The Portuguese alphabet is the same as the English, except that it contains no W. Following are the Portuguese names of the letters, together with their approximate pronunciations. A, B, C, D, E, F, or F, G, or G, H, I, E, J, K, L, or L, M, or me, N, or ni, O, P, Q, R, or S, or C, T, U, V, X, X, or X, Y, Z. Note: the letter W is only used in the foreign words in which it occurs. It is called W, very much as in English. Pronunciation. 2. Vowels. For the most part, the vowels are pronounced separately, so that each one forms a syllable. The only exceptions to this rule are the nasal diphthongs. The sounds of the vowels are characterized as long, short, open, closed, and nasal. Sounds of the vowels. Phonetic value. A long, approximating the English. A in further. Example: sofá. A short. In but. Boca. Festa. A nasal. Manso. The A sounds differ in quantity rather than quality. E, open. E, in health. Café, so accented. E close. E, in table. Selo, sometimes accented as merci. E short or mute. In winter. Caráter. E nasal, e in paint, pente. I long, e in bee, frio. I short, e in it, quase. I nasal, e in pin, injusto. O, open, o in not, po, so accented. O, close, o in note, boa, avô, so accented. O, short or mute, o in block. Locação, cravo. O, nasal, o in long, pompa. U, long, u in blue, peru. U, short, u in boot, only shorter, tribo. U, nasal, u in room, tumba. U is silent when preceded by Q and followed by E or I, aqui. Y is pronounced E, as if it were I long. It is nasal when followed by M, as tímpano. Y is much used in Brazil in words of Typee origin, as Ivaí, apodi. Diphthongs. It is customary to regard as pure diphthongs such vowel combinations as AE in pai, AI in vai, AU in pau, EI in lei, EO in deu, EU in breu, OE in herói, IU in viu, OI in boi, UI in fui. It is to be noted, however, that these combinations are pronounced not as single sounds, but as if the letters were sounded separately, yet with a slight abbreviation from the full values of the separate vowels. The true diphthongs are known in Portuguese as the nasal diphthongs. These are ãe, as in mãe, ão, as in mão, oin, as in põe, ui, as in muito. Muito, however, is a unique case. 4. Nasal sounds. There are nasal sounds for most of the vowels. These are indicated either by the nasal diphthongs or by the single vowels followed by M or N, as tão or tão, bem, sim, bom, These words are pronounced as if they ended with an English ng, in which the G is not heard. Tão is pronounced nearly as if written TOWNG, with the NG sound omitted or cut short. Bem is pronounced as if written B-E-N-G, but without the G being sounded. As if written O-O-N-G, but omitting the G sound. All syllables ending in eng, in, on, and have the nasal sound, whether at the end of a word or followed by a consonant. 5. Consonants. The consonants not mentioned here are pronounced as in English. B is silent in sujeito, subject, pronounced as if written sujeito, and in sujeitar, an old form of sujeitar. C with the cedilla, cedilha, is soft as in French. The cedilla is used to soften the sound of C before A, O, and U. Calças. C is silent when followed by T or C. Ativo. Ação. Except convicto, pacto, fricção, convicção. CH has the sound of SH in she. Chá. Before consonants and in words of Greek origin, it has the sound of K. Cristo. G is hard before A, O, and U in all cases. Before E, I, and Y, it has the sound of the French J. Gelo. When G would ordinarily precede E or I, U is added before those vowels in order to give or preserve the hard sound. Entregar, to deliver, has entregue for the past participle, thus preserving the hard G sound. G, when followed by N, is silent in the words sinal, ensinalar, and words beginning with a sign, as assinar, assinatura. H has no sound of its own in Portuguese. It is not a letter, properly speaking, but an etymological mark or sign. It has a value, however, in connection with C, L, N, and P, which see. J is pronounced as in French, like G in mich. LH is pronounced like li in million. In writing and printing, these two letters belong to the syllable whose vowel follows and must be kept together. The syllables of cordilheira are cor, di, lleira. Of filha, they are filha. M at the end of a word or syllable is nasal. Bem is pronounced as if spelled B-E-N-G, but without the final G sound. Bendito. In some words, the M is apparently silent on account of the nasal sound. Dano. N never ends a word in Portuguese, except irmã, sister, imã, magnet, hífen, colon, and certain antiquated forms like cristã, for cristã. When it precedes final S, it is nasal. NH is sounded like ni in union, that is, like the Spanish en tilde, the Italian GN or the French GN. Banho, bath. Lenha, firewood. In syllabication, these two letters, when so pronounced, always belong with the vowel that follows them. Lenha is divided le-nha. There are a few words, however, which are compounded of the prefix ang or in which the nh is not so pronounced or written, such as anidro, inábil, inalar, inibir, inumano. P is silent before T. Pronto. Escrito. Except that the P is pronounced in captar, raptar, optar, repto, and mentecapto. In isenção, also the P is silent. PH is pronounced like F. Fotografia. Q is always followed by U and always has the sound of K. QU varies somewhat. Before N and O, the U is sounded as quando. But before E and I, the U is used with the Q only for the purpose of producing or preserving the K sound, and is therefore not heard. Quer. Aqui. Exceptions. The U is sounded in consequência, frequente, equestre, antiquíssimo. It is also allowable to sound the U in questão. R has two sounds. When it begins a word or is double, it is rolled, as in French or Spanish. Rio. Erro. In other positions, it is pronounced by striking the tongue lightly against the roof of the mouth, almost as if pronouncing the letter D. Arara. Except that the single R is rolled after L, M, N, S. Honrar. Tenro. Genro. Henrique. Melro. Chilrar. S has the soft or hissing S sound and that of soft Z. It has the Z sound when it stands between vowels. Rosa. Casa. Except in cases of compound words where it has the S sound. It has the soft S sound in most other cases. TH has a sound of T. Teoria. W is used only in foreign words and should be pronounced as in the language from which those words are taken. X has several sounds, as follows. 1. Like the English KS in words ending in X, X, and UX. Fixar. And its compounds and derivatives. Flexão. And related words such as flexibilidade. And sexo, fluxo, máximo, and lexicologia. Index and appendix are pronounced indes and appendiz in addition. Note: there are, however, some local differences in the pronunciation of some of these words. Flexão, properly pronounced flexão, in Bahia is pronounced flechão. 2. Like S when followed by C, T, or P. Extenso. Exceto. 3. Like Z when preceded by E and followed by a vowel or by H and a vowel. Exemplo. Exército. Exausto. It is like double S or C cedilla in trouxe, ansiedade, sintaxe, defluxo. 5. At the beginning of words and in places other than those mentioned above, it is pronounced like the English SH. Most cases fall under this rule. Xarope, ex-ministro, baixo, lixo. Dialectical. 6. In certain parts of Portugal, one hears many pronunciations that are purely dialectical. In Minho, for example, the people generally say binho instead of vinho, wine, and soldado instead of soldado, soldier. In Trás-os-Montes, they say chapéu for chapéu, hat, chave for chave, key, gente for gente, folks. The caipiras, or backwoodsmen of the state of São Paulo in Brazil, have a similar pronunciation, which was probably introduced from Portugal. See the example quoted in the exercise at page 166. In Portugal, as a rule, the quantity of the short syllables is perceptibly shorter than in Brazil. Sobrado, perigo, and pessoa are so pronounced in full in the latter country, while in Portugal they are commonly pronounced sbrado, perigo, and pessoa. The D is pronounced in Brazil nearly as it is in the English language, but in Portugal it frequently has a strong resemblance to the English TH in these, so that desde in Portugal sounds very like desde, and dedo like dedo, the TH being soft like that in though. 7. Slang. Like other languages, Portuguese has its slang words or expressions. Such words and expressions are called calão, gíria, or geringonça. Some of them are not Portuguese, but simply fantastic expressions. For the most part, however, they are the ordinary words of the language used in some figurative or special sense. For example, estar na bagagem literally means to be in the baggage, but it is a slang expression used in regard to a person who is behindhand or who is a slow coach. Manda-chuva, one who orders the rain, is slang equivalent to the American expression political boss. Accent marks. 8. The cedilla is used with C to show that the letter has the soft C sound. The tio is used to show that the vowel over which it is placed is a nasal. It is only used over A and O. The acute accent and the circumflex are used. 1. To to show the position of the tonic accent, especially in homonyms, where there is a chance of mistaking one word for another, as esta, this, and está, it is, séria, serious, and seria, would be. 2. To indicate contractions, in relação a for a ideia, with regard to the idea. Note, the omission of the accent sometimes entirely changes the meaning of a sentence. For example, matar a sede means to quench one's thirst, while matar a sede means to kill with thirst. In the second sentence, the a is a contraction of the preposition a, by or with, and the article a, the. 3. To indicate what are called open and close sounds of the vowels e and o. Café, mercê, paletó, avô. Tone accent. 9. Tone accent is a matter of so much importance in Portuguese that it is often quite impossible to understand the spoken language when the accents are improperly placed. Take as an illustration the word sabia. The accent may make it sábia, a learned woman. Sabia, I knew or he knew. Or sabiá, the Brazilian robin. This kind of a case is not exceptional. In speaking the language, therefore, it is of the utmost importance that the accent be properly placed. The tone accent always falls on one of the last 3 syllables. There is an apparent exception to this rule in the enclitic monosyllables which are joined to certain other words, as digo-lhe, I tell you, gostá-lo, to like it. In these instances, the addition of this enclitic does not change the position of the accent, even when it falls on the syllable preceding the antepenult. Example, fala-se-lhes. A. There are no short and compact rules for guidance in the placing of the tone accent, and to almost every rule formulated there are many exceptions. The greatest number of words have it on the penult, fewest have it on the antepenult. The following suggestions may be found useful. For the accents of verbs, see the models at paragraph 107, pages 72-75. B. The following words take the accent on the final syllable. 1. Those ending in the nasal diphthongs. Except bênção, frangão, órfão, and órgão. Ãos, ães, ões. 2. Words ending in I, except álcali, espermacete, quase. L, except words of Latin origin ending in ilis, as dócil, fácil, hábil, útil, and those ending in vel, amável, agradável, crível, nível. In, are, except açúcar, cadáver, câncer, caráter, éter, júnior, mártir, néctar, sulfur, and a few foreign words like repórter and revólver. U except tribo. Y except júri, tilbury. Z. C. The following have the accent on the penult. 1. Erudite forms from the Greek ending in ia, as democracia, geologia, filosofia, autopsia, etc., except the following, which take it on the antepenult: comédia, polícia, enciclopédia, geodésia, estratégia, necromância, farmácia. 2. Words ending as follows. List of words having the accent on the penult. Ending: aco, aca, velhaco, aço, aça, bagaço, acho, acha, despacho, ato, ata, contato, ado, ada, delgado, ade, idade, ago, aga, estrago, age, agem, estalagem, aldo, ribaldo, alo, ala, except escândalo, sândalo, alho, alha, soalho, ama, panorama, ame, arame, ampo, ampa, estampa, ansa, balança, anco, anca, alavanca, ando, anda, contrabando, anho, anha, campanha, ano, ana, porcelana, anto, anta, adianta, ante, abundante, arco, arca, comarca, ardo, arda, mostarda, argo, amargo, aro, amparo, except, pássaro, arro, arra, cigarro, aço, aça, devasso, asto, asta, nefasto, haste, contraste, ato, ata, combata, ate, abacate, avo, ava, escravo, acho, acha, se, acho, isso, essa, aconteça, edo, eda, brinquedo, ego, ega, except, tráfego, eiro, ferreiro, eito, respeito, eite, leite, ejo, eja, gracejo, hélio, evangelho. Elo, ela, cancelo, cancela. Elo, cogumelo. Emo, extremo. M, leme. Except, íngreme. Ensa, nascença. Endo, enda, legenda. Enho, enha, engenho. Enso, ensa, imprensa. Ense, cearense. Ento, enta, alimenta. Ente, presente. Erso, erça, conversa. Erto, erta, concerto. Essa, impressa. Esto, modesto. Eto, eta, completo. Et, canivete. Exa, perplexa. Exa, baronesa. Isse, velhice. Except, ápice, vértice, óbice. Ixo, rabicho. Isso, issa, roliço. Ife, Recife. Igo, iga, except, código. Pródigo. Ilho, ilha, quartilho. Ilo, ila, crocodilo. Imba, cacimba. Indo, inda, tamarindo. Ingo, inga, domingo. Hino, ina, pepino. Into, inta, precinto, precinta. Inte, ouvinte. Ique, alambique. Ira, caipira. Isco, isca, marisco. Ismo, isma, fatalismo. Iso, paraíso. Isto, ista, revista. Istro, registro. Ite, limite. Except, trâmite. Ivo, iva, objetivo. Ixo, ixa, sufixo. Iso, isa, prejuízo. Oa, canoa. Except, nódoa, névoa. Osso, ossa, almoço. Ode, pagode. Ogo, oga, fogo. Oito, oita, biscoito. Olho, olha, escolho. Olo, ola, viola. Except, frívolo. Malévolo. Olto, olta, revolta. Ovo, revolvo. Oma, diploma. Ombo, omba, quilombo. Ona, azeitona. Onça, geringonça. Ondo, onda, redondo. Maribondo. Onga, oblonga. Onha, vergonha. Risonha. Ono, abandono. Onto, onta, afronta. Onte, horizonte. Oque, reboque. Ora, espora. Except, víbora. Ânfora. Cânfora. Orso, orça, esforça. Orma, reforma. Orme, conforme. Orno, orna, contorno. Orro, orra, cachorro. Orto, horta, morto. Horte, consorte. Oso, caprichoso. Osso, colosso. Osto, hosta, desgosta. Oto, ota, gafanhoto. Terremoto. Ote, serrote. Uco, uca, caduco. Maluco. Udo, uda, agudo. Ude, altitude. Saúde. Ugem, ferrugem. Uega, noruega. Ulho, ulha, embrulho. Umo, uma, resumo. Ume, betume. Uno, una, gatuno. Uno, una, aluno. Undo, unda, fecunda. Unho, unha, testemunho. Unto, unta, defunta. Upo, upa, chalupa. Uque, batuque. Uro, ura, figura. Urro, urra, empurra. Uso, usa, confusa. Abuso. Usto, usta, robusta. Arbusto. Uto, uta, enxuto. Uto, fruto. Upto, corrupto. Di, The following take the accent on the antepenult. 1. Masculine nouns from the Greek, such as astrônomo, geólogo, filósofo. 2. Absolute superlatives in imo, ilustríssimo, ótimo. 3. Words ending as in the following. List of words having the accent on the antepenult. Ácio, palácio. Áculo, espetáculo. Áfico, biográfico. Aia, raia. Halo, fio. Escândalo, except badalo. Ânsia, abundância. Ândega, alfândega. Ânia, subterrânea. Ânico, vulcânico. Ântico, romântico. Ástico, ástica, elástica. Ático, ática, aquático. Eio, eia, passeio. Élico, evangélico. Ência, corpulência. Ênito, congênito. Érico, érica, genérica. Éreo, érea, matéria. Except bateria. Érrimo, misérrimo. Ético, ética, magnético. Étrico, étrica, geométrica. Fugo, centrífugo. Geno, gena, indígena. Ício, ícia, sacrifício. Íce, superfície. Ículo, ícula, agrícola. Ídio, ídia, suicídio. Ífero, montífero. Ífico, magnífico. Ígero, belígero. Ílio, exílio. Ínio, ínia, domínio. Írio, íria, delírio. Ítico, ítica, política. Ítimo, ítima, legítimo. Ívoro, carnívoro. Ódico, metódico. Ógico, lógico. Ógio, relógio. Except elogio. Ógrafo, geógrafo. Ólico, ólica, diabólico. Óleo, espólio. Ólogo, geólogo. Ônico, ônica, carbônico. Ônio, ônia, demônio. Ônimo, ônima, anônimo. Ore, árvore. Mármore. Órico, órica, categórico. Óreo, ória, história. Except, categoria. Ótico, ótica, narcótico. Úncio, úncia, pronúncio. Úndio, úndia, gerúndio. Únio, importúnio. Uo, melífluo. Except amuo. Úria, penúria. Úsculo, maiúsculo. E. There is a natural tendency in Portuguese to avoid placing the accent as far back as the antepenult, so much so that words thus accented are called esdrúxulos, a word of Italian origin sdrucciolo, slippery, which is used figuratively in Portuguese to mean odd, strange, extravagant. The esdrúxulos are few in number and are nearly all erudite forms. Quantity: 10. The tonic or accented vowels are always long. The atonic or unaccented ones are generally short. Útil, agradável. Syllabication: 11. In syllabication, a. Diphthongs cannot be separated. b. Monosyllables cannot be divided. c. The consonant combinations LH, NH, RH, and PH cannot be separated from each other or from the following vowels with which they form syllables: manhã, batalha, filosofia. D. A consonant between vowels belongs with the second one: nariz, bárbaro. E. G and Q followed by U remain with the vowel that follows: guindaste, qualquer. F. Double consonants are separated: belo, aflito. G. Mute letters C in CH, T in TH, G in GN, T in CT, T in PT go with the following vowel: arquitetura, panteísmo, sinal, fruto, cativo, isento. H. In nasal syllables, M and N generally belong with the preceding vowel: bendito, manso, dançar. I. But when the M is followed by N, both of these letters belong with the following vowel: sono, dano. J. Compound words are divided according to their elements: substantivo. Capital letters: 12. The rules for capitals are the same in general as in English, except that adjectives derived from proper names and eu, I, are not written with capitals, save for some other reasons, such as at the beginning of a sentence: francês, French, inglês, English. This rule is not invariable, however, and one sees the proper adjective sometimes with the capital and sometimes without. The use of the capital in such cases is regarded by some authors as more strictly the Portuguese custom. In addressing persons as senhor, senhora, vossa senhoria, vossa santidade, etc., it is the custom to begin these words with capitals, but capitals are not used when a person is referred to without the name, as o senhor engenheiro tomou conta da estrada. Orthography. 13. Portuguese orthography is remarkably phonetic, and after a little practice one can usually spell correctly words heard for the first time. The etymology of the words, however, is not lost sight of, though some writers adhere more closely to the etymology while others tend towards phonetic simplification. The only exceptions to the phonetic writing of vowel sounds are: 1. The unaccented O is generally pronounced like U, short, as bonito. 2. Unaccented E is often pronounced like I, short, as doce. A. The following will serve as examples of words spelled in different ways. For present purposes, either spelling may be regarded as correct. Aprender. To learn. Aproximar. To approach. Caridade. Charity. Comigo. With me. Dito. Sad. Idade. Age. Igreja. Church. Escola. School. Escrito. Written. Lugar. Place. There are also many antiquated forms found in old books, such as he for is, uma, with an h, for uma, a or one, são for são, are. B. It is to be expected that the spelling of the present day should differ considerably from that of the 16th century, but aside from these differences one finds certain variations, called syncretic forms, that often puzzle the beginner. These come chiefly from the equivalence of the diphthongs o and oi. The following is a list of the most common syncretic forms. Either form is allowable. Açoite. Açoite. Whiplash. Cousa. Coisa. Thing. Couro. Coiro. Leather. Doudo. Doido. Crazy. Dous. Dois. Two. Lousa. Loisa. Paving slate. Multa. Moita. Coppice. Noite. Noite. Night. Ouro. Oiro. Gold. Tesouro. Tesouro. Treasure. Vindouro. Vindoiro. Future. C. On the whole, the tendency is toward the phonetic spelling, a tendency that has lately received much fresh impulse. These variations, however, are not to be regarded as license to spell words in any way. End of chapter. Chapter 2 of A Brief Grammar of the Portuguese Language. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Leni. A Brief Grammar of the Portuguese Language by John Casper Branner. Chapter 2. Articles. Definite article. 14. The definite article has gender and number to agree with its noun. Singular masculine, u. Singular feminine, a. English, the. Plural masculine, os. Plural feminine, as. English, the. The Spanish form of the definite article is used in two instances: el rey, the king, and el dorado. 15. Contractions. The articles combine with certain prepositions as follows. A. To, combines with the different forms of the article, making ao, a, aos, and as, to the. B. De, of, combines with them, forming do, da, dos, and das, of the. C. In, combines with them to form nu, na, nos, and nas. In the, instead of em, u, em, a, etc. D. Per, by, combines with them, forming pelo, pela, pelos, and pelas. By the. Polo and pola are antiquated forms. Use of the definite article with prepositions. A, to. Masculine singular, ao. Feminine, a. Masculine plural, aos. Feminine plural, as. To the. G. Of. Masculine singular, do. Feminine singular, da. Masculine plural, dos. Feminine plural, das. Of the. In. Masculine singular, nu. Feminine singular, na. Masculine plural, nos. Feminine plural, nas. In the. Per, by. Masculine singular, pelo. Feminine singular, pela. Masculine plural, pelos. Feminine plural, pelas. By the. 16. Syntax of the definite article. The definite article is used as a determinative. O menino, the boy. O bom, the good. It is used before certain proper geographical names, especially those of rivers, mountains, seas, etc. A França, France. O Tejo, the Tagus. Os Andes, the Andes. O Atlântico, the Atlantic. In Brazil, this rule is not universally followed. The names of the states of Paraíba and Bahia are used with the feminine article, while the article is not generally used with the names of the states of Pernambuco, Alagoas, Sergipe, São Paulo, Santa Catarina, Minas Gerais, and Mato Grosso. It is used familiarly before the names of persons. Onde está o João? Where's John? O Guimarães chegou. Guimarães has come. It is used before pronouns and possessive adjectives. O meu chapéu. My hat. A tua vontade. Thy will. In this case, the article may be omitted in familiar style. It is also omitted in speaking of one's skin, as meu pai, my father, not o meu pai, unless emphasis is required when it is used. It is inserted before nouns used in a general sense, where, in general, all, every, may be understood. O ouro é mais precioso que a prata. Gold is more precious than silver. It is used to indicate time and season. Às 2 horas. At 2 o'clock. No inverno. In winter. It is used before nouns of weight and measure. 2.000 réis o quilo. O metro. 2.000 réis a kilo, a meter. It is used before the names of languages. Estudando o português. Studying Portuguese. Entendo o francês. I understand French. It is used after verbs denoting possession. Estou com as mãos sujas. My hands are soiled. Tenho os olhos pretos. He or she has black eyes. It is used after todo, in both numbers. Todo homem é mortal. Or, todos os homens são mortais. All men are mortal. It is used before certain titles. O Sr. Costa. O Coronel Sampaio. It is omitted before the titles Sua Majestade, His Majesty, Vossa Alteza, Your Highness, Vossa Senhoria. It is omitted before numerals used as titles. Carlos V, Charles V. It is omitted with appositional nouns. É filho do coronel. He is the son of the colonel. Indefinite article. 17. The indefinite article has gender and number to agree with its noun. Singular masculine, Singular feminine, uma. English, an. Plural masculine, uns. Plural feminine, umas. English, some. 18. Contractions. The indefinite article combines with in, forming num, numa, nuns, and numas. in place of em, etc. It also combines with de, of, forming dum, though this is generally written d'. The old form of the indefinite article was uma with an h. The indefinite article has a negative form, nenhum, none, which still retains the h that one often sees in the old forms. A. Syntax of the indefinite article. The indefinite article always precedes its noun or its substantive adjective, as uma pessoa, a person, desconhecido, an unknown person. B. The indefinite article is omitted. 1. Before predicative nouns, denoting what a person is. Seu amigo é general. His friend is a general. Ele assentou praça. He enlisted. 2. After verbs of possession or denoting condition. Estou com fome. I'm hungry. Tenho bom apetite. I have a good appetite. 3. After various indefinites. Outro. Tal. Certo. Tanto. Semelhante. Etc. Tal dia. Tal noite. Such a day, such a night. Foi sem dizer palavra. He went without saying a word. 4. After an exclamatory que. Que bela noite! What a fine night! End of chapter 2.